No, I'm not the Mohawk running bear. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dale's Rail. Well, as you can see, as the title suggests, the Mohawk running bear. Man, that thing stinks. Well, as you can see, I probably didn't really think that title through all that well before I came up with that. I might be getting people to click on my channel I wasn't anticipating, but you never know. Maybe I'll bring somebody new in the hobby. And I did use Proto Smoke, and I've had it for a long time. Never use it. I don't know why. I think I just remembered why I don't ever use it, because I remember when I went to my hobby shop, this was the only scent they had. And is diesel really a scent, or is it more an obnoxious odor? I'll tell you, when you put in your steam locomotive and run them, it is. I don't know if I recommend that. So what I got going on here, I felt was a good opportunity to share with you guys the inner workings of this locomotive. You know, I've been running around here a little bit, watching it run, getting acquainted with it, and getting it broke in. You know, I tend to do that with all the new locomotives I buy. When I say new, they're new to me, but everything I buy is used, and you know, they usually need servicing, and this certainly was no exception to the rule. And it's kind of crazy now that I know more about this locomotive, and I had a couple of people comment on this, and I've had a chance to read those comments, and I greatly appreciate you guys doing that, because otherwise I may not found out the information I needed to on this locomotive, because I've been trying to research it a little bit, and it's pretty tough to come up with the information on this locomotive. So it's like it wasn't very well documented. In fact, I can't even find a date anywhere on anything. So it's kind of amazing. I'm just going to go by what one commenter said. He claimed to me that he has this exact same set, and the significance of this locomotive is, according to him, this is the first MTH Rail King models that came out in '95. So this locomotive is 30 years old, and so I feel kind of privileged that I was able even to get it, because this locomotive is like brand new. You could tell it had been ran, but I'm thinking this locomotive has been ran one or two times around the layout in '95 and stuck it in the box, and it's been there for the last 30 years until I bought it, because this set had no blemish on it. It's in perfect condition. And you know, the other commenter was Uncle Salty, and he's pretty knowledgeable on the MTH models, and you know, I'm glad he commented on it too, because he pointed out that this is kind of a rarity to find a MTH model, Rail King or not, that's, you know, just got this setup on it with just a, you know, a reversing board and you know, just the basic sounds. And you know, that's the thing that helped me decide to buy this in the first place, because I really didn't know what I was getting, and I just knew it was a 027 Mohawk that runs conventional. So did I know it had all this can motor design? No, and I'm kind of a little bit surprised here. I mean, it's this engine's in remarkably good condition. There is not any oil residue or smudge marks on this anything. It looks like it's brand new, and it's got that more modern can motor design with the flywheel, so that's a bonus. You know, the way it is set up here, it's if you can see, it's the very thing that kind of caused the whole issue with this puffing smoke unit. It's got that smoke unit in it. You know, that wasn't something I expect to see. Of course, these do not freewheel, so you can't really test these out trying to freewheel them, because they will not freewheel. So the only way you can get these to move is either under power, and of course, when that wasn't working, so I knew something was froze up. So my inclination is to assume that we've got hardened grease in the gears in here. So the only thing you can do is take the shell off like I did, and then this is why you kind of have to be careful. And then, you're inclined to grab this flywheel and try to rotate the flywheel to get the drivers to function, to check the grease out. And I could tell, there was just enough movement in there that I didn't think it was in the gears. And it was a good thing I didn't crank real hard on that, because you can see here it's got this can motor design, but it's got, metal shaft on it. There's a metal shaft you can see down here at the brass worm. You got this, I'm going to call universal joint. I can't tell if that's plastic or metal. It kind of feels like metal, but it's hard to tell because it's black. And it's got these pins. Now, I don't know if those are shear pins or what, but it's a good thing I didn't crank on that real hard, because that piston was seized, and that was a problem. I seen that in there and never seen that before, so I wasn't sure what I was looking at it initially, and I thought, what is this contraption? And what, when it's running, it's kind of intriguing to watch, because you've kind of got a lot going on here. You got this flywheel spinning, and then you got these drivers going in counterclockwise. And since this motor, it's kind of mounted here like this, like the old Lionel post-war Pullmore motors. They were transversely they weren't horizontal, and they weren't vertical. They were on a diagonal. And so you got that going on. And so that means there's a helix gear down here for the drive gear, but you also got a helix on top of the shaft, which that's unusual. So you got all this stuff sandwiched in there. And then you got this piston that's functioning. So when this is running, you got this flywheel spinning, these wheels turning counterclockwise, that going clockwise, and then the piston shaft running, and then your drive linkage, and then your smoke puffing. So there's quite a bit going on in here. Kind of reminded me a little bit of a Rube Goldberg design. And if you guys aren't familiar with Rube Goldberg, he was a guy that would purposely design and build a very complex machine to do a very simple task. So, probably not a fair comparison to compare it with. Maybe it's a little bit like probably, you remember Ralphie in the Christmas story, he described it best when looking at all the toys through Higbee's storefront windows as mechanized electronic joy. That's really kind of what it's about. That's what I mean by Rube Goldberg design. It's one of those things that you kind of look at and it just kind of puts a smile on your face. So it's just kind of neat to see the inner workings of it functioning. And it's got this design to it, the modern design to it. It's got that can motor design, but the way this is set up, you do have just a standard QSI circuit board reverse unit in here. It's a directional unit, electronic solid state. You do have the soundboard in here as well. But the way this is set up, this tender has no power pickups on it. The pickups are on the locomotive, but the control board's in here. So the locomotive to run is entirely dependent upon the tender, and the tender can't get power to power this board without the locomotive. So, it's one of those kind of deals. It's not that big of a deal. It's just the design of it. And the only issue is, it could be a problem with your track switches, your turnouts. But that gap's pretty generous. And when I'm using Mark's turnouts, I don't have any gaps that large on the Mark's turnouts that I'll be running this on. And so it's going to be fine running it where I need to run it. And the only other issue is you can't, I use these top tracks for my test tracks. You can't run this locomotive by itself without the tender. It's really much like the real deal in the real world. So, these locomotives, they were such behemoths, they couldn't run anywhere without their tenders, even short distances. In fact, once these were mated together, they pretty much stayed that way unless there was some serious maintenance issue they needed to do that required to decouple them. And I mean, in that regard, they were almost a little bit like an articulated unit. They couldn't run short distances. They even had to run from the main line to the roundhouse and back with their tenders. That's why those turntables had to have the design where they could put the entire length of the not only the entire length of the locomotive, but also carry that much weight. If you imagine, that's quite a bit. That's quite a few tons of weight spinning around out there. So, you know, it's kind of probably a big ordeal back then, you know, to even think about taking them apart. But the significant design here on this part here, what we're looking at on this puffing smoke unit, this is not unique to this model. American Flyer did that. I don't have any American Flyer. And they had a puffing smoke unit like that, or a piston-driven smoke unit. And theirs also made the chuffing sound. So they really had kind of a, you know, a design innovation for them probably at the time. In fact, because they did that without using any electronics, making the chuff sound. And, you know, this isn't the only locomotive, or the American Flyer wasn't either, that had that design. I mean, I've got another locomotive here. Yeah, that's a Marx, 1666. Now, if you're not familiar with Marx, they were a direct competitor of Lionel's during both the pre-war and the post-war era, all the way up until the end of the post-war era. And they came out with this particular design on the 1666s. This is what they call their steam chest smoker. And so most of the 666s and the 166s have the stack smoke. And on those, they still use this side rod to drive the smoke, which it's only connected to the rear wheel. Similar to how this gear functions. So this rotates 360 degrees, so to that. But this is all one fixed assembly. And they use this same style for a bellows on the stack smoke. But they also used it here for these steam chest smokers. And as you can see here, that little side rod that's connected to the pin, you can see it tilting at different angles there. You know, unlike Rube Goldberg, Marx would always take a complex design and make it simple. So you can see that probably that piston kind of going in and out of there, maybe a little bit. So that's the design on that locomotive. And so it's been used before. And we're going to try it out on this one and see it run. And just kind of focus in on everything that's functioning on this, is what this is about. So we'll get this running. This locomotive here tends to always start neutral, and then it'll go back over into forward, which I kind of like that. And it's smoking already, so this smoke unit works really, really good too. Get it wound up here a little bit. And you can see it'll push that smoke pretty high above the locomotive. Kind of a crazy design. It's really hard to see that that shiny brass flywheel spinning. It doesn't take much movement at all. It doesn't even look like it's moving. It's probably hard to tell on camera. Yeah, you can see it if it's going slow enough. Maybe it'll slow down here enough. Yeah, so you got all this stuff going at the same time with this locomotive. And the amazing thing, it's just buttery smooth. That just works so well. Kind of makes you wonder why they don't continue to use that. I'm kind of impressed with this just because there's a, they're just using the same can motor they use to drive the locomotive. There's a lot of stuff sandwiched in there. That just works so effortlessly. I mean, this is a really well-designed locomotive, I think, for a Rail King model, I guess. So apparently these first Rail King models might have lacked detail, but they didn't lack quality that I can tell of. A little shot here on it coming at us head on, maybe. Yeah, you can't really see nothing. Yeah, that just works so effortlessly. It's like a well-oiled Swiss watch. And, I've been looking on here, trying to find some dates on here, and, to kind of verify, this is from the time he's saying. I'm going to have to take his word for it. I'm just grateful he knew all that. And you can see there's a date on there, built 6/41. Now, I don't think MTH was making these in 1941, so I'm not sure what these dates are, but that's the way all the dates are on the car. There isn't an actual built date on these. I'm not sure what that date's representing, if that's the actual date of the car when the real car was made, or if they're just using how Lionel did it back then. I don't know what that means. Maybe somebody knows that. But luckily, Uncle Salty, kind of reached out to me on this caboose, because that was one of the questions I had on this caboose, and nobody seemed to know what this caboose is. Now, maybe they didn't have a name for it. He knew it was a New York Central style, and that corroborates what I've already looked up on it. I don't know if they even probably had a name for it. Sometimes they just had a number, but so I'm gonna name it. I'm gonna call it the flat top offset cupola. There you go. So now we got a name for it, I guess. The flat top offset cupola. And I've even been looking here, on the box. Get this coming backwards. Got to give it a little delay there. Yeah, you can even see where I've been starting to do the weathering on here. I was trying some weathering out on this. I don't know, maybe that's not proper, but it's acrylic. As long as I don't seal that, I can always take that off. That's not a problem. So, I've been working on that a little bit. And we'll get this box out here and look on it, because I've looked on this box. I have the original instruction sheet with it. You can only see here on this box, it just tells you it's an 027 set, and it's surprising. That'll remain to be seen if that'll run on an 027 track radius. Because if it says 027, that means that it should run on the tighter radius as 027. And those drivers are pretty good size, and there's a pretty good spacing on there. So it's hard to believe that could run on 027, but maybe it will. But I got to looking at the box here too. I mean, it's pretty cool box art on there. I mean, little Johnny there, he looks happy, but I think I was happier than that. I mean, what do you guys think? You think Johnny's that happy, or do you think maybe he just had a little gas? Let me know. I didn't know that. Look at that. It looks like he's using a Lionel ZW transformer. What do you think? I think the MTH version of that, what's the Z4000? It would have either that or he's got the Z4000 backwards because they have a face on them. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You think that's a ZW transformer or not, running his MTH trains? And then the only other thing I can find on here, there isn't a date anywhere. There's no date in the instructions. I can't find a date on the cars. So hopefully, maybe there's somebody else out there that can corroborate that guy's story. I'm going to go with it because that's the only thing I got to go on. It's really hard to find anything. And, if you guys come to the channel, please take the time to comment. If nothing else, just to say hello. Don't be bashful. And, I'd appreciate it. Well, that's all I have for this week. And until next time, you've been watching Dale's Rails, and thanks for watching.